You've ever invested serious time into one of those massive open world video games?
Mm.
There's usually this distinct breaking point where the grind just becomes completely unbearable.
Oh, absolutely. You hit that wall.
Right. You spend hours collecting like tiny amounts of gold, battling the same low-level enemies over and over just to repair your gear. And you inevitably think, I really wish I had a cheat code.
Yeah, you just want to punch in a quick button sequence and bypass all those survival mechanics.
Exactly. So you can finally experience the game the way it was meant to be played, actually exploring the map and having fun.
Because you transition from, like, purely managing a finite health bar to operating in a pure sandbox environment. The fundamental rules of the game just change because resource scarcity isn't the main thing driving your decisions anymore.
But then, you turn off the console and you go back to real life where that grind is just the default setting. We all inherently accept that for 40 or 50 years, we're going to trade our prime waking hours for a paycheck just to maintain baseline survival.
Which is pretty bleak when you phrase it like that.
It is. But what if there was an actual real-world cheat code? I'm not talking about magic or some get-rich-quick illusion. I mean a mathematical formula that unlocks that exact same infinite resource mode for your everyday life.
And that is the core premise we are unpacking today. We're looking at a really comprehensive guide from ShoesFi, specifically developed by Jonathan Mendonça, and it focuses entirely on calculating your financial independence number, or your FI number.
All right, the FI number.
Yeah. And the value of this specific source material is how it takes this incredibly abstract, historically anxiety-inducing concept of retirement.
Retirement is terrifying for most people.
Right, because it's a huge question mark. But this guide distills it down into a highly customized mathematical certainty.
So, welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission for you today is to demystify the exact objective math required to walk away from mandatory work. We're talking about making employment an option rather than an obligation.
Yeah, it's about shifting your mindset. You go from this vague, distant hope of, like, maybe having enough money when you're old to holding a very specific, personalized cheat code in your hands right now.
And the psychological shift there, it really cannot be overstated.
Oh, it's massive. I mean, in a financial culture that's just characterized by profound anxiety and constant guesswork, establishing a concrete FI number provides a measurable target. It changes your entire relationship with your income.
You're not just throwing money into a void anymore.
Exactly. Instead of hoping for the best, you're building a specific machine with a known output. You know what the finish line looks like, down to the actual dollar.
And we're going to make a promise to you straight away. By the end of this deep dive, you will have the framework to calculate the specific dollar amount you need to be financially independent. And because the underlying math is so elegant, you can run that calculation in about 60 seconds.
Which is wild, right? 60 seconds. But the mechanics behind it do require a fundamental shift in how you view your portfolio. Before we can even touch on the timeline, like how quickly you can get there, we have to establish the destination.
Right. We have to know where we're going.
Exactly. We're moving away from the philosophical dream of endless vacations and grounding this in hard, cold mathematics.
So the source defines your FI number as the exact threshold of invested capital required to live off the returns indefinitely.
Yeah.
Without ever, depleting the principal amount you started with.
And the engine powering that entire concept is something called the 4% rule.
The 4% rule. Okay, let's break that down.
Yeah, so this is a widely adopted benchmark in the financial independence community. The rule dictates that if you maintain a broadly diversified portfolio of investments, so we're talking typically a mix of low-cost index funds and bonds, you can withdraw 4% of that total value every single year.
Just 4%.
Just 4%. And historically speaking, even factoring in market volatility and inflation, that portfolio is statistically highly likely to survive for a 30-year retirement timeline, or even longer.
Okay, though the guide does note a slight variation, right? For those who want an absolutely bulletproof scenario.
Yeah, if you're a highly conservative planner, or say you're retiring extremely early and looking at a 50-year timeline instead of 30, you might adjust that withdrawal rate down to 3.5%, just for an extra layer of structural safety.
Makes sense.
But 4% is the recognized standard for getting the baseline math locked in.
And it's vital to understand why that 4% threshold works mechanically. It's not that your investments are only growing by 4%. Right?
No, not at all. The underlying assumption is that your diversified portfolio might average a 7 or 8% return over the long haul, adjusted for inflation.
Right. So by only skimming 4% off the top for your living expenses, you're leaving that remaining growth inside the portfolio. And that remaining margin is what protects your principal against inflation and the inevitable market downturns.
Exactly.
To put a visual on those mechanics, I like to imagine your investment portfolio is an apple orchard.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Right. So the capital you invest, the principal, represents the physical trees. The 4% rule essentially dictates that every autumn, you only harvest the apples that grew that specific season. You eat them, you sell them, you live off them, but you never, ever chop down the actual trees for firewood.
Because if you leave the structure intact, the orchard generates a brand new batch of apples the following year.
Exactly.
And that structural integrity is what allows us to reverse engineer the target. If we know the orchard can safely yield 4% a year without degrading, we can calculate exactly how massive the orchard needs to be.
Right.
And that's based entirely on how many apples you require to survive.
Which gives us the 25x rule.
Yes, the 25x rule. This is where we get to that 60-second calculation. The guide strips this down perfectly. Let's say you know your baseline lifestyle costs $48,000 a year. That's factoring in housing, food, transportation, literally everything.
Okay, 48 grand.
You simply multiply that annual expense number by 25, and your target is $1.2 million.
Wow. Just times 25.
Yep. It's a brilliant mathematical shortcut because 25 is simply the inverse of 4%. Dividing by 0.04 and multiplying by 25, they give you the exact same result.
That's so simple.
It is. But what is truly paradigm shifting here is what's entirely absent from that formula. Your income is irrelevant to the target.
Wait, yeah. Your income isn't in that equation at all.
Not at all.
Which completely shatters the traditional understanding of wealth, Well, your financial independence number is tethered exclusively to your expenses, not your salary.
Like, you could be a massive earner pulling in $500,000 a year, but if your lifestyle burns through $500,000 a year, your FI number is a staggering $12.5 million.
Yeah.
You're chained to that high-stress job because your orchard has to be the size of a small country.
Yeah, you're trapped by your own spending. But conversely, someone earning a modest median income who optimizes their life to live happily on $40,000 a year, they only need a $1 million portfolio.
Right.
They can potentially cross the finish line decades before the high-income earner who suffers from intense lifestyle inflation.
So the target is actually something you can manipulate. It's not fixed.
Precisely.
Let's hold on to that $1.2 million figure from the earlier example. If that's the destination, the immediate follow-up is determining how to control the velocity of the vehicle to get there.
Yeah, how fast can we drive? So the Choose the Eye guide provides this highly illuminating stress test using their financial independence calculator to map out these variables. They set up a very relatable baseline scenario.
Walk us through it. Okay, we look at a 35-year-old individual. They currently have $50,000 saved up in investments. They commit to contributing an additional $500 a month to their portfolio. And we assume a standard historically conservative annual return rate of 7% on those investments.
Okay, I'm writing those variables in my head. 35 years old, a $50,000 starting line, adding $500 a month, compounding at 7%.
Right. And when you feed those exact numbers into the calculator to reach the $1.2 million target, the result lands in September of 2058.
Wait.
Yep. They will hit their FI number at age 67. It requires a 33-year timeline.
Age 67, that's literally just the traditional retirement age.
Yeah.
If someone is 35, doing everything quote-unquote right by saving and investing, and they still have to grind away until they're 67, the concept of early financial independence just feels like a complete mirage. I mean, the math works, but the timeline is agonizing.
And that visceral reaction you're having right now, that is precisely why running the baseline calculator is the necessary first step.
Because it's a reality check.
A huge reality check. When confronted with a 3-decade timeline, the average investor's instinct is to try and force the market to work harder. They start hunting for risky individual stocks or like highly volatile assets, hoping to magically turn that 7% return into a 15% return.
Right. Chasing the big wins.
But chasing yield introduces catastrophic risk. You are essentially gambling with your survival resources.
And you cannot command the stock market to go up. which means investment returns are a lever you don't actually control.
Exactly. The true levers, the mechanisms you have absolute dictatorial control over, are your savings rate and your
All
expenses.
right.
The math becomes genuinely thrilling when you apply what the source calls the double win of expense reduction.
Let's dissect the mechanics of that double win, because it fundamentally alters the trajectory. If our hypothetical 35-year-old was spending $4,000 a month, locking their target at 1.2 million, let's say they art at their lifestyle. They optimize their grocery bill, negotiate their insurance, cut out some friction spending.
Yeah, they trim the fat.
Right, and they reduce their monthly footprint by just $500. So their new monthly spend is $3,500.
Which means their annual spending drops to $42,000. Multiply that new annual figure by 25, and the required FI number plunges to $1,050,000.
Wow.
By eliminating a mere $500 of monthly waste, they essentially erased $150,000 of required capital from their finish line. The target physically moved closer to them. That is the first win.
That's huge.
Uh.
And the second win is where the compounding really accelerates. They didn't take a pay cut, right? They just stopped spending that $500.
Right, it's still in their pocket.
So that cash is now sitting in their checking account at the end of every month. They can immediately redirect that newfound $500 into their investment portfolio,
Yeah.
taking their monthly contribution from $500 up to $1,000.
Exactly. You are attacking the timeline from both ends simultaneously. You permanently lower the ceiling of what your portfolio needs to achieve, while radically increasing the fuel you're pumping into the engine.
It's brilliant.
When you run those updated numbers through the calculator, so a lower target of 1.05 million and a doubled contribution rate, you shave decades off the mandatory working years. This is the exact mathematical mechanism that allows people to retire in their 40s instead of their late 60s.
Man, the math is bulletproof. But translating a sterile spreadsheet into a messy, real-world life is where the friction happens.
Oh, definitely. Life gets in the way.
Living the double win sounds phenomenal until, like, the transmission drops out of your car, or you face the psychological pressure of wanting to take your family on a decent vacation without feeling like you're pushing your FI date back by 3 whole years.
And the source material acknowledges that reality deeply. Optimization cannot equal deprivation, or the system just fails. People will quit. To make this functional, the guide addresses the critical, real-world obstacles, starting with the most destructive force in personal finance.
High-interest debt.
High-interest debt. The guide is unequivocal here.
Yeah.
If you are carrying a credit card balance at a 20% interest rate, the math of financial independence collapses.
Yeah. There is no index fund safely returning 7% that can outpace a compounding 20% penalty.
Exactly. It acts as an active debuff on your finances. You are veiling water out of a boat with a massive hole in the hull. Eradicating high-interest debt isn't just like a good idea. It is the absolute non-negotiable prerequisite to the FI journey.
You have to plug the hole first.
You have to. And once you neutralize that toxic debt, the strategy shifts to widening the gap between income and expenses. The guide advocates heavily for increasing your earning power alongside your expense reduction.
So not just cutting back, but making more.
Right. This means leveraging side hustles, aggressively pursuing career growth, and restructuring existing obligations, like refinancing a mortgage or student loans, to drastically lower your mandatory monthly carrying costs.
And regarding that fear of deprivation, particularly with lifestyle expenses like travel, the Choose FI strategy is heavily built around optimizing existing systems to maintain a high quality of life. Travel is historically a massive line item in a family budget, right? And it's usually the first thing people cut when they try to save money.
But instead of cutting it, the strategy revolves around utilizing travel rewards mechanisms.
Right. The guide specifically points to leveraging credit card rewards ecosystems. They highlight cards like the Chase Sapphire Preferred, the Ink Business Preferred for those running side hustles, and the Capital One Venture Card.
Yeah, and the underlying mechanism here is powerful. You route all of your heavily optimized everyday spending through these cards. You pay the balance in full, down to the penny, every single month.
That part is crucial. Down to the penny.
Never pay a fraction of a cent in interest, but you capture the massive sign-up bonuses and point multipliers. You then convert those points to cover flights and hotels.
You effectively extract thousands of dollars of luxury travel out of your baseline grocery and utility spending.
It is the ultimate expression of optimization over deprivation. You aren't giving up the vacation, you are just refusing to fund it with dollars that could be compounding in your investment accounts.
It's like finding a loophole in the game's economy.
Exactly. And this level of sophisticated financial maneuvering doesn't just happen on day one. To help people navigate this evolution, the source breaks the FI journey down into 5 distinct progressive stages.
I view these stages exactly like a video game skill
Oh,
tree.
I like that.
Yeah, because you cannot unlock the high-level abilities until you master the foundational mechanics.
And the progression is very linear. So stage 1 is simply categorized as just discovered FI. This is the paradigm shift. You run the 25x calculation for the first time, and the illusion of the traditional retirement age shatters. You realize that early financial independence is a mathematical possibility.
So you unlock the map.
Exactly. Which brings us to stage 2, mapping your finances. This requires looking objectively at your current stats. You calculate your net worth, you lock in your current savings rate, and you implement a tracking system so you know precisely where every dollar is bleeding out of your accounts.
And this is historically the most uncomfortable stage, right? Because it forces you to confront the reality of your consumption habits.
It's painful, but that discomfort is required to reach stage 3, taking control. This is the active phase of reducing your expenses. You ruthlessly eliminate unused subscriptions, you negotiate your recurring bills, and you deploy that double win strategy we discussed. Every dollar is given a specific job.
Which leads right into stage 4. Optimizing everything. This is the advanced tactics tier on the skill tree.
Right.
You're no longer just saving money, you are actively manipulating the mechanics of the financial system.
Right. This is where you're optimizing your tax brackets by strategically utilizing pre-tax versus post-tax investment accounts. You're perfectly balancing your asset allocation, and you're running those travel reward strategies to fully decouple your lifestyle quality from your spending rate. You are squeezing every mathematical edge out of the system.
Defeating the boss, basically.
Yeah.
Which finally unlocks stage 5. Work is optional.
Yes. Stage 5. Your diversified portfolio has reached the 25x threshold. The 4% safe withdrawal rate now entirely sustains your optimized lifestyle. Your passive income has officially crossed over and replaced your active living expenses.
You've activated infinite resources. You literally beat the game.
You really did. And when you analyze those 5 stages collectively, you see that financial independence is not merely a spreadsheet exercise. It is a highly holistic ecosystem. The guide emphasizes how this journey fundamentally alters your money mindset. It impacts your physical health, your psychological wellness, and changes the trajectory of how you raise your children to understand value.
Because once you internalize the math, every purchase is framed differently.
Yeah.
When you realize that every single dollar you optimize today is literally buying back a day of your own life in the future, the desire to buy a brand new luxury car just to impress your neighbors, it completely evaporates.
You stop purchasing status and you start purchasing your own freedom.
Yeah. It forces absolute alignment between the capital you deploy and the life you actually want to live. It acts as a permanent filter for your decision-making. So, synthesizing all of these mechanics, the core takeaway for you, the listener, comes down to understanding that elegant equation. You need to calculate your true optimized annual expenses. You multiply that exact figure by 25. That gives you your target. That is the size of the portfolio you must build.
And you must remember that the timeline to hit that target is not dictated by the stock market or traditional retirement norms. You control the velocity.
You're in the driver's seat.
You manage the timeline by aggressively widening the gap between what you earn and what you spend. By utilizing the double win, lowering your expenses to simultaneously drop your FI target and accelerate your investment rate, you take complete control of the mathematical levers.
So we want to issue a very specific challenge to you right now. Take just 10 minutes today. Look at your baseline expenses, open up a calculator, and run your own numbers. It does not matter if you're currently starting from zero or if you're fighting your way out of debt. Do the math.
Just do the math.
Pinpointing your specific, personalized FI number is the most clarifying action you can take. You cannot navigate out of the grind if you don't possess the coordinates to the exit.
And defining the target instantly replaces lingering ambient financial dread with a highly tactical plan of action. It's incredibly empowering.
But as we close out this deep dive, we want to present a concept that goes entirely beyond the spreadsheets and the optimization tactics.
Yeah. We spend so much energy discussing the rigorous mechanics of reaching stage 5, the phase where work officially becomes optional. But very few people actively prepare for the profound psychological weight of that achievement.
Visualize it.
Yeah.
You optimize your life. You execute the double win. You compound your investments, and you successfully hit that 25x number. You walk into your workplace, you hand in your notice, and you're officially free.
You sleep in on Saturday.
You sleep in on Sunday. But then the sun comes up on your very first Monday morning of true, unadulterated financial independence. The cheat code is active.
And the entire external structure that dictated your schedule, your goals, and often your identity for decades is suddenly permanently gone.
So the crucial question you must begin answering today, long before you ever reach that mathematical finish line, is this. Once mandatory work is completely eliminated from your life,
Yeah.
what do you actually do on that first Monday morning?
If you never have to trade another hour of your time for money, what is your purpose?
Let the weight of that question sit with you as you run your numbers. We will see you on the next deep dive.